Sending some good vibrations to whoever is watching this. I'm going to talk of rhythm. So now, you gotta understand this, or you gotta know this. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tide. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the right swing is the measure of the left swing. Rhythm compensates. So, the great fifth Hermetic principle, the principle of rhythm, embodies the truth that in everything there is manifested a measured motion, a to and from movement, a flow and inflow, a swing forward and backward, a pendulum-like movement, a tide-like ebb and flow, a high tide and a low tide between the two poles manifest on the physical, mental, or spiritual planes. So now, the principle of rhythm is closely connected with the principle of polarity described in the preceding videos. Rhythm manifests between the two poles established by the principle of polarity. This does not mean that, however, that the pendulum of rhythm swings to the extreme poles, for this rarely happens. In fact, it is difficult to establish the extreme polar opposites in the majority of cases, but the swing is ever toward first one pole and then the other. So there is always an action and reaction, an advance and a retreat, a rising and a sinking, manifested in all the areas and phenomena of the universe: suns, world, men, animals, plants, minerals, forces, energy, mind and matter. Yes, even spirit manifests this principle. The principle manifests in the creation and destruction of worlds, in the rise and fall of nations, in the life history of all things, and finally in the mental states of men. So the beginning with the manifestations of spirit of the all, it will be noticed that there is ever the outpulling and indrawing, the outbreathing and inbreathing of Brahma. So universes are created, reach their extreme low points of material, and then begin their upward swing. Suns spring into being, and then their height of power being reached, the process of begins, and after eons they became dead masses of matter, awaiting another impulse which starts again their inner energies into activity, and a new solar life cycle in the beginning is begun. So thus it is with all the worlds. They are born, grow and die, only to be reborn. It's a cycle. Everything that comes in must go out. There is birth and death. The universe always has two sides. It comprehends death and reborn, and that it is with all the things of shape and form They swing from action to reaction, from birth to death, from activity to inactivity, and then back again. That's it. That is with all living things. They are born, grow, and die, and then they are reborn. So it is with all great movements, philosophies, creeds, fashions, government, nations, and all else, or else, birth, growth, maturity, death, and then reborn or rebirth. The swing of the pendulum is ever in evidence. So night follows day, and day night. The pendulum swings from summer to winter, and then back again. Atoms, molecules, and all masses of matter swing around the circle of their nature. There is no such thing as absolute rest or cessation from movement, and all movement partakes of rhythm. The principle is universal, of universal application. It may be applied to any question or phenomena of any of the many planes of life. So now it may be applied to all phases of human activity. There is always the rhythmic swing from one pole to another. The universal pendulum is ever in motion. The tides of life flow in and out according to law. The principle of rhythm is well understood by modern science and is considered a universal law as applied to material things. Mm? But the Hermetics carry the principle much further and know that its manifestations and influence extend to the mental activities of men, and that and that it accounts for the bewildering succession of modes, feeling, and other annoying and perplexing changes that we notice in ourselves. But the Hermetic, by studying the operation of this principle, have learned to escape some of its activities by transmutation. So the Hermetic masters long since discovered that while the principle of rhythm was invariable and ever in evidence in the mental phenomena, still were two planes of its manifestation so far as mental phenomena are concerned. They discovered that there were two general planes of consciousness, the lower and the higher, the understanding of which fact enabled them to rise to the higher plane and thus escape the swing of rhythmic pendulum which manifested on the lower plane. In other words, the swing of the pendulum occurred on the unconscious plane, and the consciousness was not affected. This they call this this they call the law of neutralization. Its operation consists in the rising of the ego above the vibration of the unconscious plane of mental activity, so that the negative swing of the pendulum is not manifested in consciousness, and therefore they are not affected. It is akin to rise above a thing and letting it pass beneath you. We have the power to change anything. It's in our power to transmute anything. So now, the Hermetic masters or advanced student polarize himself at the desire pole and by a process akin to refusing to participate in the backward swing, or in or if you prefer, a denial of its influence over him, he stands free. Hmm? So he stands free in his polarized position and is free. So now the mental pendulum to the swing back along the unconscious plane. All individuals who have attained any degree of self-mastery accomplish this, more or less unknowingly, and by refusing to allow their moods and negative mental states to affect them, they apply the law of neutralization. The master, however, carries this to a much higher degree of position, and by the use of his will, he attains a degree of mental firmness almost impossible of belief on the part of those who allow themselves to be swung backward and forward by the mental pendulum of modes and feelings. So now, the importance of this will be appreciated by any thinking person who realizes what creatures of modes, feelings, and emotion the majority of people are, and how little mastery of themselves they manifest. If you stop and consider a moment, you will realize how much these swings of rhythm affect you, or affect you in your daily life. So how a period of time has been invariably followed by opposite of feeling and mode of depression. Likewise, your mode and periods of courage have been succeeded by equal modes of fear. And so it has ever been with the majority of persons, tides of feeling ever rising and falling with them, but they never suspected the cause or reason of the mental phenomenon. So the understanding of the workings of this principle will give one the key to master, or to the mastery of this rhythmic swing of feeling, and will enable him to know himself better and avoid being carried away by these inflows and outflows. The will is superior to the conscious manifestation of this principle. Although the principle itself can never be destroyed, we may escape its effects, but the principle operates nevertheless. The pendulum ever swings, although we may escape being carried along with it. There are other features of the operation of this principle of rhythm, of which we wish to speak at this point. So there comes into its operation that which is known as the law of comprehension. One of the definition of meanings of the word comprehend is a counterbalance, which is the sense in which the Hermetic use the term. It is this law of comprehension to which the Caliban refers when it says the measure of the right swing is the measure of the left swing. Rhythm comprehends. So you gotta understand this. The law of composition is that the swing is one direction determines the swing in the opposite direction or to the opposite pole. The one balance or counterbalances the other. On the physical plane, we see many examples of this law. The pendulum of the clock swings a certain distance to the right and then an equal distance to the left. The seasons balance each other in the same way. The tides follow the same law, and the same law is manifested in all the law and all phenomena of rhythm. The pendulum with a short swing in one direction has but a short swing in the other, while the long swing to the right invariably means the long swing to the left. An object upward to a certain height has an equal distance to the traverse on its return. The force with which project is sent upwards a mile is reproduced when the project returns to the earth on its return. So you gotta understand this. This law is constant on the physical plane as refers to the standard authorities will show. But the Hermetics carry it still further. They teach that a man's mental state are subject of the same law. The man who enjoys keenly is subject to keen suffering, while he who feels but little pain is incapable of feeling but little joy. So the big suffer, or the pig suffers but little mentally and enjoys a little. He compensates. And on the other hand, there are other animals who enjoy keenly, but whose nervous organisms and temperaments cause them to suffer in quintess degrees of pain. And so it is with men or with us. There are interments which permit of but low degrees of enjoyment and equally low degrees of suffering, while there are others which permit the most intense enjoyment but also the most intense suffering. The rule is that the capacity of pain and pleasure in each individual are balanced. The law of compensation is in full operation here, but the Hermetics go still further in this matter. They teach that before one is able to enjoy a certain degree of pleasure, he must have swung as far as possible towards the other pole of feeling. They hold, however, that the negative is presented to the positive in this matter, that it is that in experiencing a certain degree of pleasure, it does not follow that he will have to pay up for it with corresponding degree of pain. On the contrary, the pleasure is the rhythmic according to the law of compensation for a degree of pain previously experienced either in the present life or in the previous incarnation. So now you gotta understand this. This throws a new light on the problem of pain. The Hermetics regard the chain of lives as continuous and as forming a part of one life of the individual, so that in consequences, the rhythmic swing is understood in this way. While it would be without meaning unless the truth of reconciliation is admitted. But the Hermetic claim that the master's or advanced student is able, to a great degree, to escape the swing toward pain by the process of neutralization before mentioned. By rising on the higher plane of the ego, much of the experience that comes to those dwelling on the lower plane is avoided and escaped. So now, the law of compensation plays an important part in the lives of men and women. It will be noticed that one generally pays the price of anything he possesses or lacks. If he has one thing, he lacks another. The balance is strike. No one can keep his penny and have a bit of cake at the same time. Everything has its present and unpresent side. The things that one gains are always paid for by the things that one loses. The rich possesses much that the poor lacks, while the poor often possess things that are beyond the reach of rich. So now, the billionaire may have inclination towards fasting, and the wealthy wherewith to secure all the indebtedness, and luxurious to enjoy the same. He envies the appetite and digestion of the labor, who lacks the wealth and inclination of the billionaire, and who gets more pleasure from his plain food than the billionaire could obtain, even if the appetite were not judged, nor his digestion was ruined. For the one's habit and in connection of the affairs. So it is through life. The law of compensation is ever in operation, striving to balance and encounter balance, and always succeeding in time, even though several lives may be required for the return of the pendulum of rhythm. So you gotta understand this, or you gotta know this. The measure of the right swing is the measure of the left swing. Whatever we send out in the world comes back to us. Everything we send out comes back to us. Rhythm compensates. So we gotta be conscious of the actions we do in our daily life. We gotta master the mind. We gotta master our mind. That's the only thing that matters on earth, because mind control is being practiced on earth. We gotta rewire our subconscious mind to reach heaven. That's all I wanted to talk about in this video. YouTube, nature be with you.